UK. So the Trump tour has been full of politics, protests and disagreements. Let's try and make sense of it all now with David Dunn, a professor of international politics at Birmingham University. So good to speak to you, David. President Trump has been to NATO and to the UK now, creating chaos, but he seems to come out of it smelling of roses. Is Trump redefining international diplomacy?
Well, by his own accounts, he comes out smelling of roses. He likes to flatter himself. He likes to make large claims. He likes to actually suggest that he's made huge progress in NATO, as he did when he went to the G7 in Canada. But actually what he's done is prompt people to flatter him as a way to try and deal with his disruptive behavior. Trump is somebody who has, as you say, redefined what it means to actually engage with allies, rather than seen as an opportunity to recommit, to reassure, to actually show the continuity of a relationship. What he's done is use this as an opportunity to try and make himself the centre of the story, to make himself out to be this great big achiever, but actually by undermining his allies, by haranguing them, by berating them, by giving briefings to the press that actually insult them and praise their political enemies, as he has done with Mrs. May. And then, of course, when he comes out in public, he actually contradicts himself. He says that the press have lied, even though we've heard the tape of him with the Sun newspaper, which actually showed that he did say that the things that they reported. So actually what we're dealing with is a bundle of contradictions, an ego on a stick. In fact, the Daily Mirror newspaper had a headline this morning that said, "The ego has landed," playing on words there about the way in which America is incarnated in this extraordinary individual.
Well, Theresa May and Trump, disagree on many issues. And also, this morning, he stabbed her in the back with his comments about Boris Johnson. But from that press conference, one can say that she puts all those differences aside and can cope with him.
Well, I think actually the nature of diplomacy is such you have to make the best job of whatever's in front of you. The consequences of doing the opposite would be far too grave. Britain is massively reliant on trade with America, on its security through NATO. We've actually turned away from Europe through Brexit, and therefore we're shunning the traditional alliance of the UK for the last 43 years, and the hope was that would give us an opportunity to have a closer relationship with the United States. So actually what they can't say is that this situation is problematic, and that Trump is an obvious liar and a problem for us. So in a sense, what you do is try and make the best job as possible of the situation. They put together this program. You're showing there a picture of Blenheim Palace in Oxfordshire, the ancestral home of Winston Churchill. And the British programme was designed to try and keep him out of town, on the move, and actually give him the cultural heritage tour in order to try and keep him away from controversy. But actually, he's someone who actually craves the limelight in a way that means that even though that programme was carefully prepared, he still manages to try and grab the headlines through this extraordinary interview to a tabloid newspaper in the UK.
Yes. Just very briefly to get a question in there, David. So you're a professor of international politics. How do you explain Trump to your students? But just very briefly.
What it shows is that politics is not a given, that actually the liberal order that we've taken for granted for 70 years is not a given. What matters is the choices people make, and the leaders that they choose can have a dramatic effect on the direction of a polity and the direction in which it moves. And that's true of the United States, it's true of the UK with Brexit, and of course it's true in your country too.
Well, we have to wrap it up here. Thank you very much for that insight there, David Dunn.